Okay. Got it.
All
I
right.
didn't even talk to you.
I know, which is so weird. So we have what, 3 ladies with over there?
Yeah.
The weather looks amazing. Is it still like 100 degrees?
Thankfully, no.
Yeah, it's dipped down to like 80.
Oh, okay. Well, that's much more manageable.
Yeah, I know.
We're not.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, for reading my book and for getting together and inviting me to your book club discussion. This is going to be fun.
So cool to have you.
She wrote 2 other ones that follow. So.
Yeah, I saw something about that. That's awesome.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
Oh, we were talking about your sequel.
Oh, yeah.
There's more to follow.
Oh
Snow in Seattle is the sequel, and then Snow's Kitchen is the finale. And then I'm actually working on book 4 right now, which is totally different from my other 3. It's actually about surviving childhood sexual abuse, and it is based on a true story of a friend who survived so much. So I'm writing her story. It's called The Copper Phoenix, and hopefully it will be done by the end of this year so we can get it pushed out. So yeah.
Wow.
Busy.
Yeah. She's a little writing machine.
Oh my gosh. How long does it take to write? I mean, like, is it a couple of years? Like, what's your process like?
I know, it really depends. Like the first book, I wrote that in 2 years. I actually quit my corporate job in February of 2017 when my mom passed, and I took the time to mourn and to figure out what I was going to do with my life and reset. And so I wrote that book to honor her memory and her escape from Vietnam and all that stuff. And then, I just realized that I really enjoyed writing. I didn't want to go back to the corporate, world. And we moved to Oklahoma because, Joe and I were like, well, let's find a place where we can live on one income. And then so yeah, it's been amazing. And the second book took me another year. So the first book took me 2 years. The second one took me a year. The third one took me 1 month. And then, yeah, if you ever consider writing, don't do NaNoWriMo and try to write a book in 1 month. It's suicidal.
No.
Oh my God.
But the third book was actually, it's half of it is a cookbook. And so really, it was easy to write because it wasn't something that required a lot of research, because the third book is based on my life as a teenager, straddling between 2 identities, the American identity and the Vietnamese identity, and feeling just confused. But that didn't require any research. And then the fourth book is what's taking a long time because it's not my story.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be done right. And because of the topic, the emotional topic of it all, it's like I'm reading books about trauma and healing and substance addiction and all this other stuff. So it's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like heavy material.
Yeah. And I've been volunteering at a child advocacy center, not working with them, but playing with the kids who come in for their forensic interviews. And so I can't wait till the book is done, to be honest with you, because it's a lot of emotional, lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to know who I'm talking to. Do you guys want to do a quick introduction? All I can see is Whitney's hands.
I'm here. I'm Whitney.
Jessica.
And my name's Crystal.
Whitney, Jessica, Crystal. Crystal, I feel like I've met you before, but maybe not. Because I can only see half of you too. So.
Oh no, yeah.
I was like, we can hold on. Let's see if we can rectify this a touch.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, then we used to have 2 others. We used to have Christy and Brittany, but they couldn't be here. It's just the 3 of us.
Which is good to just be out of the house without 500 children. So.
Yeah, and it's not 100 degrees out. Right.
All right. Well, what questions do you ladies have? What did you think about the book, and tell me what surprised you when you read it.
So what I was saying is it was based off of, you said, your mom's experience. Were the characters fictional, or were they people that your mom had knew? Like, was Snow your mom, or?
Mhm. Snow is my mom. So her
Okay, yeah,
Vietnamese name is Thuy, which translates to snow, hence the title, Snow in Vietnam.
yeah,
And that first book was, I would say, about 75% true. I mean, a lot of it is like even Sister Six, my Aunt
yeah,
Six, she's real. And my dad, his story is real. Um, there were some characters that were fictionalized because it was a bridge to weave the stories together. And there were parts of my mom's story that I didn't know. And so, in doing my research and in doing the interviews, I needed certain characters to play certain parts so that we can kind of weave the story together. So, like Mrs. Tran, for example, she was based on several different people in one, and to help move the story together. But she herself was a fictional character.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's very interesting.
Yeah. But my cousin, Tree, is real, and he actually lives in Seattle near the airport. So he's,
Does he?
Way.
yeah, he's 12 years older than me, and he's got 3 kids, 2 girls, one son, and they've all got their own lives and families and things like that. So it's crazy how things have progressed since the end of the Vietnam War
Yeah,
for our family. Yeah.
yeah. I really liked him or his character in the book. I found it very endearing. I liked how you put him in. It was really good.
Thank you. Yeah, his character, and it's true. He was very much the outdoorsy type person and really resourceful. And if you guys read book 2, you'll understand kind of what happened to him when he came to the States. But he was a really good person until we got to the refugee camp, right? Then it's like
Yeah.
he's the typical teenager. And anyways, he definitely wanted to go back to Vietnam. He did not want to be with us. Yeah.
How much time have you spent? You said you came over, or how much time have you spent in Vietnam?
Well, I've been back to the country 4 times now since I left, and I was there. Well, I was there until 5 years old, and as you know, I was born with a hole in my heart. In the story, I had a congenital heart defect, and that was my mom's main motivation to leave the country. Obviously the war itself was bad, and after the communists rolled in and things changed for our country, it was really hard to survive there. You had no medical resources. Everybody who could leave left, and so they took with them all of their knowledge and their trade and their skills. The economy collapsed. The whole U.S. being in the country created this false economy, this bourgeois type environment, and so all that came to a halt. Not immediately, but once people were rounded up to taken to different economic zones or put into re-education camps, then it was like, okay, everybody fend for yourself. And anyway, so my mom, she actually did trade in the black market. So all that was true. That's how she scraped a living.
Wow.
And then after several attempts that were thwarted, she finally survived and made it onto a boat, with me and my cousin. And yeah, I mean, it took us a long time once we got to the States to actually come back to Vietnam because you weren't allowed to trade, you weren't allowed to travel. And it wasn't until the 90s when President Clinton lifted the embargo that doors opened up again. And so families didn't see each other for like 30 plus years, when they left. It's crazy to think about. But
Yeah. I had to remind myself reading it like this is someone's story. You know? Because being born and raised in America, I'm just not used to hearing stories like that. So
yeah,
reading it, I had to remind myself, like, oh, this actually happened to someone.
yeah. And that's the thing is like, I mean, I didn't hear about it, growing up either. It's not something we learn about in school. And it's very, history in general is very one-sided, right? And even when the first time I went back to Vietnam and I went to a museum, it was all propaganda. It was all um, wax statues, I guess, of prisoners of war, and it was all about how the South were the enemy, and so you just kind of have to do your due diligence and research and see both sides of the coin and figure out where you stand. But yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So have you read any other what do you guys normally read? Do you read when you get together? Do you read historical fiction, or is it all over the place? Young adult, fantasy, romance?
So yeah, it's been all over the place. We've been so far picking books off of the Reese Witherspoon book club list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which you can
Hello,
have mixed.
Sunshine.
Yeah. Which I think we've talked about branching out, like to
Like
doing a
first
little
book
bit
we
more. Yeah,
branched out.
yeah. You were
Which
the
is
you were the
cool.
first book that was off the list. Branched out. Yeah.
I've been trying to branch out myself. It's like prior to writing these books, like I didn't read any API type books. I didn't read any LGBTQ books. I mean, I mostly stuck to. I don't read romance either. I'm just, I usually tend to stick with either memoirs or mystery novels. But I think with COVID and just me being a writer and everything, and critiquing and judging manuscripts, it's been an eye-opening experience. And I found that I like certain things that I wouldn't normally pick up and read. So
Mhm.
I think that's maybe one of the blessings of being sheltered in place is you're forced to do other things.
Yeah.
Do you guys have Whitney? Are you the moderator? Who's the moderator? Putting you on.
Well, I picked, and we're just here. I know, I guess me. I'm just listening to you talk. So for me, because I know Amy, I bawled through the whole book. I mean, bawled. But then also listening. So recently, my husband's grandmother passed, and they came from Saigon. They were the last family to go through the gates before the fall of Saigon. And so hearing that story, and then like bawling, and then knowing like Amy's story, and I mean, I probably cried for a week after we got home because we got to be with Justin's family. Because grandma passed 2 days before the anniversary of the fall of Saigon.
Oh my God.
So we got to be with Justin's family and hear from grandpa and hear from all the kids that were there. I mean, and like, it was just like piecing it all together, like it brings Amy's book like more to life in my head, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was just like, oh.
Yeah. And it's one of hundreds of thousands of stories, right?
Yeah.
As similar as our stories are, they're also quite very different, especially once you come to America. The refugee or the immigrant experience is all quite different.
And Justin's grandparents, when they got to the US, they started in California in a refugee camp, and they were the last family to be adopted out of the refugee camp. So
Wow.
because they're so big, there were so many of them.
So they were able to get sponsored together, or were they separated?
Together by 3 churches in Bellingham.
Oh, wow. How many were there?
8 kids.
Yeah.
And then mom and dad. And so Justin's grandfather fought in the war alongside the Americans, and he took the boys and he left and he went to the airport. And he's told you know, he told his wife, he said, Min, you grab the girls, meet me at the airport. Min tried to get her other family members to leave. Nobody would leave. But because Grandpa fought alongside the Americans, they let the family, you know, they let the whole family through the gate. And so they ended up like, I forget where they went before Guam. They ended up somewhere before Guam. And then from Guam, they went to California. And then Grandpa met up with them later. He was told his family was sent to Thailand, and they weren't. And so when he found his family, first thing he saw was his oldest daughter and said, how many did we lose?
Oh, wow.
And luckily none. They didn't lose a single child. Yeah.
Like makes my stomach.
I can't imagine.
Oh, it definitely brought like more of it to life, and like hearing the different, you know, about being in the refugee camps and being on the boat, and like, so then it brings me back to like, I had to reread the whole part in the book where, you know, they're on the boat, right, and all the things, because now I know more, like I can picture it more. And I bawled for, I mean, good solid week when we got home. Every time somebody asked about it, I'm just like bawling. I'm like, I can't.
You know, one of my swag giveaways is tissue now. I have little mini packets of tissue, Kleenex tissue that have, you know, my book cover on it.
Oh, that's so funny.
so cute.
Yeah. So last weekend I was at a summer food festival, and I was doing book signings, and I was like, if you buy a book, you better take one of those tissues because you might need it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but I'll be in Seattle. Well, I'll be in Seattle for the first week of August, but then I'm going to be coming back next year in July for a readers and writers event. It was supposed to have happened 2 summers ago, but it got changed because of COVID. And then this year we weren't sure what was going to happen. But you guys should consider going. It's there's like over 50 authors that fly in, and it's an all-day event. You basically come home with like a suitcase of books because there's so many, if you like to read. And it's a chance to not only meet the authors, but there's going to be models, book cover models there as well, which is kind of fun because you get to, you know, look at good looking people that grace the cover. But yeah, it's going to be, I think it's at the Seattle Hilton. The venue might change, but it's by the airport. Yeah.
That was fun. We could make a book club day.
Yes, we should get our book signed.
There you go.
There you go. By then I'll have my 4th book, and I might bring some other books with me because I am helping 2 authors publish their book as well under my Quillhawk Publishing brand. My publishing print. Yeah, and actually one of them just published. It came out on Thursday. It's called Fireside, the James Johnson story, and that one takes place in the 50s. It actually flashes back to the 50s from present day, but all of the characters are in an assisted living home, so they live these rich lives that we get to have insight into. And so she just published her first book, and it's about James, who's, you know, a Black man, and falls in love with a woman who is white, and she's from a broken home, and it's them fighting through racism, you know, to stay alive. But then she's working on her second book, which is also pretty cool, and it's about an evangelist pastor who gets addicted to drugs and just falls from grace. But it's beautiful because these are seniors, these are elderly people that she's writing about, and reflecting on the lives that they've lived. So that's one of the books that I'm helping to publish. The other one's a gay novel, a coming of age one about learning about your identity and your sexual orientation. So what do you guys like to do for fun? Do you write at all?
I mean, I sort of used to. I had this idea that I would do too, but like, I have like a 2.5-year-old, and I'm like, yeah, one day, so maybe so. But man,
Amy's actually getting one of my kids in a few days. I'm sending him on an airplane by himself. So
Yeah.
he's so it should be fine.
Yeah. I need another child to help me in the garden, in the kitchen. So I'm gonna put Katie.
Oh yeah,
oh my
good at that.
gosh,
He is good at that.
that's so cool.
But I think What was your guys' favorite part of the book?
I didn't read this time. I feel so bad. I did not have to, I ordered it, and then I got caught up in Father's Day, and then we had my father-in-law and my brother-in-law's birthdays right together, and so I have it on my nightstand. I still wanted to come and meet you, so I was like, but I know what it's about.
Well, who was your favorite character?
Yeah, I like Snow.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
I like. Yeah, I know. That sounds like such a generic answer. But there were moments, I don't know how to put, where she seemed very harsh or very I don't know, harsh, standoffy. But then it was well, she kind of you kind of have to be that way, right? Deal with life as it comes to you. You don't have time for all the PC nuances,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just her character and the growth, and I mean, even from the beginning of the book through the journey, the personal growth and the love for the daughter and stuff like that. Obviously, you.
That's me. It's funny how
I know
my books and they don't realize that I'm Dolly in the book. I'm just like, well, if you read the blurb, I think it's pretty clear that, but maybe it's not. I don't know. It always surprises me when people have that epiphany, oh my God, the author is Dolly.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought it may be you, but I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I wonder how much is fictionalized or what's based in reality, what's not. But that's why I asked, so which characters are real? Are you really the daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part to read though was when they're at the refugee camp.
Mm-hmm.
What part?
The refugee camp.
Oh, mm-hmm.
That's my favorite part. I just like that whole, that was my favorite read of the whole book.
Why was it your favorite?
I don't know. I think part of it because it kind of opens your eyes a little bit, right? You grow up here, you don't know a lot. I actually grew up in an all-white community when I grew up. There was nobody of color. The only person that we kind of was in that category is my dad's best friend was Guamanian, but he grew up, his wife is Caucasian, and grew up around with everybody that was Caucasian. So I moved here I moved to Renton when I was 15, and nothing was like I ever thought it was. My whole world opened up. So there's it part of it was kind of you realize there's something bigger than you, there's something that you don't know and that's bigger than you, and you're never going to feel the way they feel. But I think it really brought me into being able to kind of feel how the characters were feeling, right? And then when they decide to go and Snow doesn't decide to stay there and with and teach English and do all the things, I'm just what's next?
So were you rooting for Omo, for her to stay with Omo?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I kind of was.
100%.
No, I wasn't.
Oh yeah, I was
no, go. But then I was oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, Omo was a real person.
Really?
Yeah, he was an actual official in the Indonesian military government, and I remember bits and pieces of him. I definitely remember him sitting underneath the trees and playing his rebarb and his instrument and singing, and it was really cool actually. Those little bits and pieces that I do remember. Yeah. But yeah, my mom said, that as much as she could have stayed for that safety net, there was no true guarantee that there would be some kind of medical assistance for me or the surgery or, that I needed. And I mean, her sights were set on America because that was what she was comfortable with, but also believing that, they had the technology to fix my heart. In Vietnam, there's no medical insurance, there's no supplies, there's just deaths. there's hardly any doctors, and even if there were doctors, right, do they have the medicine and everything else needed? And even till today, like I'm partners with Healing Hearts Vietnam, which is a nonprofit organization that's ran by some doctors who live in Virginia. But they've been going back to Vietnam every year, and they do fundraising, and they raise money to provide heart surgeries for the kids in Vietnam with CHDs, congenital heart defects, because they simply don't have the everything that they need or the money, right, to get these surgeries. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
you know,
And Amy actually got the opportunity to meet the surgeon recently who operated on her heart.
Oh,
No
really?
way.
yeah, that was such a beautiful story because, you know, after I got to America, I came here in March of 1980, and in August was when I was rushed to the hospital to have my heart surgery. And I was in there for over 6 hours between, you know, prep and everything else. But my mom, she received these drawings of my surgery when I was in the hospital. Okay, let me back up. So there's this triple board certified surgeon who's like a specialist in valve repairs. And so I literally hit the lottery when I came to Seattle Children's Hospital, and he was my surgeon. His wife, who wasn't his wife at the time, but she was the medical illustrator who stood in the operating room for 6 hours, drawing my surgery, labeling
I had
everything.
no idea that was such
Yeah,
a thing.
is
Even.
that wow.
She is
Wow.
literally one in a million. There's not a lot of medical illustrators out there, you know, and she was fresh out of art school. She wanted to be an artist, and that was her first job, was medical illustrator. But she gave these drawings to my mom, and she was like, oh, you know, trying to help explain through an interpreter what the procedures were and what was wrong with my heart and everything, and what they did. So my mom held on to these drawings for years. And when she passed, I took over and kept those drawings. And all it said on there in terms of an identifying name was Dr. Hall. And I never knew who Dr. Dale Hall was. I never knew anything about the person who drew these drawings until this year. In January, I was invited to come on to a podcast called Heart to Heart with Anna. And she and I were talking about my CHD, and I was telling her how, you know, I've always wanted to meet the hero behind my surgery. So she went on this mission to try to find who Dr. Hall was. She found Dr. Dale Hall through different avenues. She invited me back onto her show and did this surprise reunion for me.
Oh my gosh.
And 2 weeks after we taped that episode, I flew to Seattle and met them, the wife and my surgeon, for the first time.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was just, you know, a dream come true to finally to say thank you, you know, in person
Yeah.
for saving my life, but also giving my mom these mementos from the surgery.
Yeah.
So
my
yeah,
gosh.
it's pretty cool. And I'm gonna see them again actually in August when I come to Seattle. Quick little
Oh, I love
visit.
that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Never
Yeah, when she posted that on Facebook, I was bawling. I'm like,
Oh, that's such an I mean, that
Hello.
could be a book.
I know that
itself.
alone. But that's why, like, when I was reading the book, I was like, no, this is too much. Like, this is too much to actually happen, like, in one person's life, you know? Like, just one thing after another. And then, like I said, I had to keep reminding myself, like, no, this is a story about someone's life, you know? Like, it's not fictional.
Yeah.
No,
Like textbook idea.
it's
That
so
needed.
crazy.
Textbook idea.
So crazy the
people
lives
want
we
to
live.
know. All the people want to know that
Oh my
story.
god.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, that's a good, yeah, that would be a good story, I think, to write one day. I have all these stories in my head that I want to write after the Copper Phoenix, and including my dad's story, and another part of my story, I guess, before I got married to Joe, after college, but before Joe. That was an interesting time period as well. But I think that's the part of being a writer, is you have all these people talking to you in your head in the middle of the night, and you just want to get them out of your brain.
So your second book, Snow in Seattle,
Mhm.
does it kind of pick up where the last one left off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It picks up with being in the hospital for the open heart surgery. And
Okay.
that one it's been interesting because I've been told that the second book is better than the first book.
Okay.
It actually revolves around PTSD quite a bit. And it's actually Skylar and Snow are reunited in Seattle, and it's their story of starting over with their life while dealing with the trauma of the past. And but there's some new interesting characters. I guess the favorite in that one is there's a bride, there's a rainbow bride in there. I'll just leave it at that. Pique your curiosity maybe, but she was an interesting character, right? And she was partially real.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then the third one, Snow's Kitchen. That one, if anything, you guys should get that one because there's 100 pages of photos and recipes in there.
Oh wow.
My family, yeah, from my mom and me. I was just telling Whitney that that was a good thing we postponed our conversation today because I was in the middle of roasting a duck.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you said your mom passed before you wrote the books, or did she? Okay.
Yeah. So we found out that she had lung cancer, and she lived for a year, and then she passed. And of course, my world came crumbling down, and I just knew that I didn't have it in me anymore to work at corporate America, because I was doing crazy 60 plus hours a week and traveling, and the money was good, but that was about it, guys. I was living to work. And so it was a good time to reevaluate what's important in life. Unfortunately, I took my mom's passing, but we all have those, inciting incidences or conflicts or things that rise that, make
The
us.
fork in the road.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's been it's been great, but I've gotten acclimated to Oklahoma, but there's still a part of me that wants to go back to Seattle, and my heart's still there.
That's okay. Justin wants to move to Texas, so we'd just be a couple hours away.
Yeah, a little closer.
No, what's in Texas though?
My dad's moving there. He just started a new business, and so my dad's moving there, and my sisters are moving there. Justin's uncle lives there with all of his 500 kids. So he wants to go. He's ready. He's like, I'm over this Washington thing. I've lived here my whole life. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready, dude.
Leave the book club.
Right? I'll be the virtual one.
Yeah.
What part of Texas?
Well, my dad's moving to Blanco.
Where?
Blanco, Texas. It's like, I think it's a little north of San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
But we can't do anything until Cameron graduates high school, though. He's got 2 years left.
Yeah, he's close. He's looking mighty fine. He's grown up to be a good-looking boy.
He is too good looking. The girls like him.
There's a picture of him with new glasses, and they look like they're tinted or shaped. They are
a little tinted because they're transitional lenses.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's funny because all these girls like Cameron because he's so cute, but then he has autism, so he's so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, girls will like talk to him and he would say something and they're like, why did you just say that? And he's like, I'm like, oh, God teach this boy how to talk to people.
He'll work through it. You guys have done an amazing job getting all the kids.
Oh, you can have them all. Plane ticket and at the end of August, right in time for school, you can have them.
I'm gonna need a lot of money to take care of all those kids.
More books.
More books.
I gotta feed them all. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love to cook, but I'm going to need to sell a lot more books to take care of them all.
I will Walmart grocery you some groceries.
There you go.
Okay, I'll have them delivered every week.
Yeah, DoorDash there.
Okay, I had a question. So, I had this thing where we were doing weekly book studies for Snow in Vietnam. So instead of a book club where you read it and then you meet once a month and that's it, this was every week we met for an hour and we would digest 4 chapters at a time. So it was a way to read a book in increments, right?
Yeah.
And then we discussed those 4 chapters that were assigned. But the group actually came up with a lot of really good questions throughout the whole book study. So I was going to ask you a couple of them and see what your thoughts were. One of my questions, though, was related to Dirty Butt, the chicken.
Yeah, the chicken.
Oh, not the chicken.
Hong Yo is the chicken. So, question: would you have eaten the chicken, or would you have rescued the chicken?
I love this question.
Personally, I'd have rescued it, but no. But I understand eating it.
What a great question.
I know.
I
I know.
Or chicken.
Joe and I don't know if you guys watched the Handmaid's Tale.
I haven't watched any of the new season because I'm just not mentally ready yet.
Yeah, they're all intense.
Yeah, for me it's just like it's a very high, like it's a high anxiety show. So I have to be ready. Like,
Right? That's why I haven't dug into it. Like I'm so curious, but I'm like, I don't know. Handle that. It's like,
I barely have time to breathe yet, let alone watch TV.
right?
Well, there's a scene in there where well, I probably should not even spoil it. But the question comes up of, pet as food or vice versa. And I'm just thinking, well, it's a chicken, but at the same time, it's your pet. And then I look at my dog, Ike, and my cat, Chloe, and I'm like, would I eat you in desperate times?
Oh, God.
You probably don't want to eat Ike. I mean, kind of old now.
He might be a little tough. No, it's
I mean, the cat's probably mostly just hair, to be honest.
Oh, I know, right? She's skin and bones. I mean, she's like the biggest furball ever, and
She's a Himalayan rag doll.
Oh, I love those. They're so beautiful.
and the Stern cat, she loves Joe. She loves my husband. And
And Joe didn't even want a cat. Joe was like, no, I did not want a cat.
Why is it always? It's like I feel like cats are drawn to the people that are like anti-cat.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's
yeah. And it's mostly the guys. I don't know. Maybe it's because women just are nurturers and we love you unconditionally, but it's the, even with like my dad, like I have to work hard for his approval and his love, but with my mom, it's like, I can be mean and she still love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or chicken. You had to break my heart all over again.
Yeah, cry for
Whitney, you just cry a lot, don't you, honey?
Yeah, I'm an emotional person.
Aw, that's why
my favorite patient died right after I got back from Florida.
No.
He had an LVAD, a left ventricle assisted device, which basically pumps your heart for you on your left chamber, because his right was okay, but his left atrium was bad. And so he kept getting infections in his driveline. And when you get a LVAD, you have these batteries you have to wear, and you have to hook up to this big battery thing at home.
Whoa.
And you always have to have backup batteries. And then you have this line that comes out of you to charge it because it's inside of you, right?
Whoa.
And the drive line kept getting infected. And so they were going to replace the whole thing and put in the newer model, and he didn't make it. And it was so sad. And I, like, at this point, I was like, I'd already cried all week in Florida. Like, I was like, I'm all out of tears. But then last weekend, I ran into somebody inside of Walmart. They were, Samoans are very big about wearing, like, shirts with their loved ones on them or buttons. And this lady has a shirt on and his face just plastered on the front of it. And I just looked at her and I just started bawling. And she's like, honey, are you okay? And I'm like, no. And she's like, why are you crying? I'm like, that's my patient.
Oh man.
So working in heart failure, though, we have a lot of deaths. We've had like 42 patients since January passed.
Oh my god.
So
I couldn't do what you do, Whitney.
some are harder than others.
Yeah. It's
You're like, another one.
Yeah. Some of them, like we just had this one guy, he passed, but he was stubborn. He didn't want to do anything we told him to do. He didn't want to take the medications. He didn't want to do anything. And then when he was dying, he was like, you need to save me. And we're like, we can't. There's nothing else we can do.
Like we told you what to do.
Yeah. It's sad. But I am going to starting school in the fall for my LPN. So it'll take me about 2 years. But once I get my LPN, I want to sign up for surgical missions and go with surgery. Yeah.
what does that entail? Surgical missions.
You have to find a group that does surgeries like in foreign countries, and then you go with them and assist with surgeries.
You can go
So-
with me with Healing Hearts Vietnam.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm like, I want to learn how to speak a language before do I go to another country.
Yeah.
Well, that might take more than 2 years.
Yeah. I have my Google Pixel buds though. They're pretty great. You pop them in, and if somebody's speaking another language around you, you put it in translate mode, and you can pick up what they're saying.
I love that so much.
Yeah, people don't like it when you know what they're saying when they're talking about
Yeah, I
you.
know.
Though.
The Kiwi one.
I did that in Florida
That's hilarious.
because everybody was speaking Vietnamese, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what's
I
happening?
want to know. That's hilarious.
I was like, can I phone a friend?
Lifeline.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I have a question about Min Huang. So Min Huang is Mrs. Tran's son who fought for the North on the communist side, and then he came home after the war ended. I'm curious to know what your impressions of him, of that character, was, because there were parts where he displayed a more human side of him, and then there were times where he, he's the bad guy, but also he were times when he did good things also to help Snow and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of curious what your initial reaction to him was, that character.
You look like you have a big opinion.
yeah, so
Whitney's like chewing on something over here.
I know, I'm thinking about it. And when like my initial opinion was like, what a jerk, right? But then he was helpful and he did what he could. And then, like part of it was like, well, are they just gonna like fall in love and stay in Vietnam? Like, sometimes relationships don't start like that. And then he was like, no, here, I'm gonna help you. And I was kind of torn because he'd be a jerk, and I'm like, oh, I hate you. And then he'd do something nice, be like, okay, it's fine, you're all right.
Yeah.
And then he'd be mean again, I'm like, I hate you again. So,
Yeah, he was a complex one, and it's like I tried to write him in such a way that to help people understand that, sometimes war makes you do unspeakable things.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, was he hardened by war? You know what I mean? Like, felt like he needed to have that side.
Mm-hmm. Well, even with Snow, she went from this demurring, obedient person to trading drugs on the black market, and
Yes.
true.
So, yeah, and then there's my cousin Tree, who was fascinated with death and loved hanging out at the alley of the hospital to see all these decaying corpses. So I'm like,
I know.
and that was true too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me that story. I'm like, you are interesting, aren't you? And he's like, I'm like, this is not the same thing as liking the smell of gasoline when you're a kid, like this
This is a little different.
yeah. I mean, I learned so much in writing, my mom's story and just unearthing our heritage, my heritage and my
Is
roots.
there anything you learned about your mom that you didn't know before?
I never gave my mom enough credit for just how resilient she was, because growing
Yeah.
up, like, she never talked about the escape, the boat journey, what it was like to start over with nothing, and to me, I had such a good childhood. Um, Up until my teenage years, everything was great from my perspective. And even with the heart surgery, I never felt like I wasn't strong enough, or that, and even though, like, I remember wanting a Cabbage Patch doll, and those things were dang expensive back in the day. Um, but my mom scraped it together and she got me one. And so it made me realize that, she was one resilient, tough cookie. And
Yeah.
it wasn't, like I said, until after she passed that I started to unravel to learn everything, that I realized what she went through as a single woman. She came here in the States when she was 40 years old and started over, and to not have a husband, which was a huge deal
Yeah.
in my culture, and raising a child by herself, that's how lonely I think that must have been for her. So,
Yeah.
I thought that too. I was like, man, could you imagine? I could just think like if like Justin were to die, or
Yeah.
because he'd have to die to ever leave me. So
Right?
there's that. But like just taking care of your kids on your own, like
I can't imagine.
I
I
can't
have one.
even.
I can't.
And that's all she focused on. Like
Yeah.
was making sure you were a successful human.
yeah, I lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did.
And in the third book, it's like, I remember, like, I wrote that in 1 month, like I said, and I was every single night when I was writing that, I was crying, because I was like, man, I was such a rotten child. I was so mean. I was so mean to my mom. That's what teenagers do, right? We we fight back, but I think for me, it was an identity crisis situation where, I'm expected to be one way because I'm Vietnamese, but I want to be like my American peers. And there's that dichotomy and that struggle. And so you end up lashing back against
Yeah.
your parental figures. And, but yeah, poor mom.
I was thinking about
I
that
know.
with the whole cereal thing, right? Like I was like, man, I just want to slap Dolly, and I like all the attitude and being out with her friends and being like, that's not my name, and I'm like, I'm gonna kick you.
Dolly didn't know who she was. Like, she had so many different names, that she wanted to be. Like, I literally, like, I wanted to be a Nancy, and I wanted to be, something else. Did not want to be Dolly, because that was like Dolly Parton and Dolly Pop Up and Dolly this and that. But here I am. I'm an Amy now.
Yeah. Now you're Ashley. Now you're Amy.
Yep. Yeah, which you'll learn in book 3 why I changed my name to Amy.
Okay.
No.
But now you're an Amy. Out of all the names in the world, you settled on an Amy.
I know.
I know Nancy was so funny. I was like, I can't picture you as a Nancy
Me
Right.
neither. Me
ever.
neither.
I'm like, nope, definitely not a Nancy.
And a Christine. I think I was a Christine for a while too. So,
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe a Christine, but not a Nancy for sure.
yeah, and that was all about the whole Nancy Reagan thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Ronald Reagan was the president at the time, and Dolly wanted to be, the first lady. She wanted to look a certain way and be treated a certain way, and she thought Nancy was the way.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. I mean, I would have wanted to be a Dolly. I love me some Dolly Parton.
Right?
Oh, I haven't met her, but I discovered a Dolly, a Vietnamese Dolly, just recently, because I'm on the Asian Author Alliance group and the Asian Hustle Network.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's a musician. She's a singer, and her name is Dolly Ave. I don't know if it's Ave, like AVE, or if it's Ave, how she pronounces it, but it's Dolly Ave. And so I was like, oh my gosh, another Asian Dolly. There's another one. It's kind of cool.
It's your people.
Yeah. That's what-
Every time I meet another Whitney, I'm like, you're my people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Whitneys.
It really isn't.
No, and most of them are Southern.
Huh.
Mhm.
I haven't met a Southern Whitney yet, but when you move to Texas, you might become one.
Yeah.
Who
That's
knows?
hilarious.
Who knows? Justin
Good call.
really wants to move to Texas. He keeps looking at houses down there. He's like, how about this one? How about this one?
It's
how
so
about this one?
cheap. It's so cheap, and it's so like 300 days of sunshine, basically. I mean, it's just so nice.
Yeah.
But if you end up moving near San Antonio, which is close to where my dad lives in San Antonio, I'll have to come and visit or meet halfway or
I
something.
didn't realize your dad was in San Antonio. I thought he lived somewhere else, but
Yeah, nope, San Antonio.
we should have just gone to his house when we were there and been like, hey, we know Amy.
Yeah.
Come on, Dad, let's go.
Yeah, he's 85 years old now.
Wow.
But yeah,
How old would your mom be if she was still alive?
81, I think. So
I only knew Amy's mom in her older years, but she was a very sweet lady.
Really?
yeah, my mom was.
First time I met Amy's mom, she just hugged me. I'm like, I don't even know you, but all right.
I love that.
Bring it in.
Yeah, my mom was pretty cool, and she was atypical in the sense that she wasn't like super strict, and she didn't reserve and hold back on the affection. Asians in general, we don't show affection in public or behind doors, really. We believe in tough love, and we don't want
Oh Lord, have I learned that?
Yeah.
Longest week in Florida in my life. Okay. I cannot tell you how many lectures I got. All the lectures. All of them.
That's good though, builds character.
Builds character.
They 100%, all of them. They're all lecturing each other the whole week. I'm like, you people, just hug it out.
Right?
Hug it out. What you make them do is you sit in a room and just spend 5 minutes staring in each other's eyes and not saying a word.
I'd probably die.
Have you heard that experiment? Like, it's the most amazing thing. How
No,
connected
I
you
would
feel.
probably die. Justin's mom would probably find a way while I'm staring in her eyes to like stab me. She's
It's
intense.
Whitney. I'm recording this.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You can edit me out.
Uh,
She's scary.
It's like a cough button to like,
Right?
like 5 seconds.
You can cut me out. I'm fine.
Do you have any siblings? Did Snow ever have more children?
I have half siblings.
Okay. Yeah.
And step siblings. So
Yeah.
when my mom moved down to Orange County, California, and when she remarried, he had 3 kids. So I had two stepbrothers, one stepsister. And then my dad, of course, he had a family of his own, an American family.
Right.
And they had 2 boys, 2 girls. So I did meet them. And it didn't go very well when I met them.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just, they didn't know I existed. And so it was one of those stories where, like, I was in Dallas and visiting a friend of mine. And I don't know how this came about really, but my brother, my half brother, the oldest one, reached out, Timothy, and he said, hey, we would love to meet you. And if I buy you a ticket, would you come down? And I said, well, I'm in Dallas. And since he was in Houston, I was like, that's a really quick trip. So he bought me a plane ticket to fly from Dallas to Houston, picked me up at the airport, and super awkward, right? We're driving to the house and I meet my stepmom, my 4 half brothers and sisters. We go out to eat, and my stepmom, was amazing. She was an author. She passed already from Parkinson's, but she was an amazing woman. She was a writer, a translator, just super smart. And but my four siblings and I didn't really have anything much to say to each other. And the oldest one was interrogating me the whole time I was there.
Oh,
And yeah, she was pretty upset that I existed, I guess. Anyway, so that was the only meeting that I've ever had with my siblings. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to put myself through that again. um, but I don't know. I'm sure I have other brothers and sisters out there, to be honest with you. I think my dad, was a little bit of a wild child when he was younger. Put that lightly.
yeah.
Yeah, he was a good looking guy too. I mean, if you look at pictures of him, he was a bodybuilder back in the day, which is unheard of, when in a country where lift weight or weightlifting, goodness, wasn't something that you do,
Right.
So yeah, but he was pretty built. Interesting.
Yeah.
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 So many book ideas.
All the ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad's story. What's that?
I said it was a beautiful story.
Thank you. Well, I hope you read the other books. But I do want to write my dad's story one day because he's had a very interesting childhood, very harsh history and background. It was during the French occupation and the Vietnam War as well, and the atrocities that he not only saw but had to participate in was pretty cringy. But yeah, I think if I ever wrote that story, it would he'd have to pass and move on into the next realm before I write it, because it would be just way too traumatic to dig those up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Amy, does your dad speak French?
No, but he speaks perfect English, and he's super smart. He ran a natural, kind of like a GNC store for a while. So he's a naturopathic doctor, and he's super smart, really well read, intelligent guy, and I think he's read all three of my books, which is interesting. Because I told him, I was like, you're not portrayed very nicely in these books, Dad. But yeah, he's read them.
Sometimes that's what people need so they can have acceptance of their own choices.
He was very open about it. He was like, we all have our own stories and perceptions and experiences. And he said, that was your experience growing up without a dad, and if you felt anger and resentment, and if your mom hated me because she felt betrayed, then that's the way it is, and he's like, God knows I have regrets and stuff as well. So he's like, just speak your truth, write your story. And now he's like, I love your writing. I'm proud of you. And he's like, everything's up to interpretation. So, but he's like, just write your truth. And I'm like, okay. Your truth was, my truth was I hated you growing up, Dad. But, I mean, but we've reconciled, and I love him, of course, and we keep in touch and stuff like that. But it was hard for a while.
Huh.
It's never too late to forgive. That's certainly a theme in my books.
Well, we'll have to check out the second one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's behind me. Still in Seattle.
Yeah.
You can't see through her head, but
Yeah.
I know. Well, I hope to meet
and
you.
what was the deal with? Remember when you were first publishing it? Somebody wanted you to change the cover.
Oh.
Yeah, and one person told me that they didn't like the title either.
Oh, I love the title.
Thank you. I mean, it's a curiosity for sure. You know, you're like, snow in Vietnam. Like, is there snow in
Yeah.
Vietnam? And why is it called snow in Vietnam? Until you realize that snow is the character.
Yeah.
But I mean, the initial book cover isn't as good as what it is now. It did go through a revision. So I can understand now why the first cover wasn't that appealing, because it wasn't very multidimensional. It, you know, and the color scheme and the font wasn't grabbing, and it wasn't also uh, historical fiction type of cover. So I get it, and I appreciate the feedback, you know. But I like my covers now, and if I ever do another edition, or if it gets picked up by another publisher, for example, and they change it, I'm okay with it, because at least I have, you know, my covers that I have now that live on. Yeah. But I'm actually going to do a collector's edition and put all three into one book, and try to get that into the Library of Congress next year.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. I want Snow to live side by side with Little Women, and, you know, and the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. Actually, the Copper Phoenix got accepted into the Library of Congress, so I can't wait to
No
get
way.
that out.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So there's a story in you, ladies. I believe in you. I think you guys should maybe write something.
Oh,
If anything, it's therapeutic.
that's so nice.
It is there.
It's very therapeutic. Yeah.
I'm so glad you could join us. Like, what a treat.
Thank you for having me. It's always
I thought it would be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
no,
kidding.
this was
I
great.
mean, like, how much do you have to do that?
well. I always enjoy meeting people who've read my book and getting their perspective on certain things. I always learn something new or hear something different, so that's always cool.
Mhm.
Oh,
But
I love that.
yeah. Well, thank you for having me, and I will go ahead and stop recording. I like to put things on my YouTube channel, so if you ever want to revisit this conversation, it will forever be there.
Oh, that's awesome.
we can talk. We can listen to Whitney talk about her husband and her mother-in-law.
Yeah.
You'll be famous.
It'll be fun. It's okay. She's out there somewhere plotting against me.
Oh my gosh. You heard it here first.
If I go missing, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god. Watch, is gonna be like evidence in a podcast one day or something like that. I'm like, oh my god.
I actually really love to listen to mystery podcasts,
Me
like
too.
about real life crime.
Me too.
Oh my gosh.
I do want cross stitching, which I love the juxtaposition of
Oh
like
my
these grisly murders, and I'm like literally like stitching. I'm like so much.